When you picture the Roman Empire, you probably think of marble columns, legions in perfect formation, and emperors born and bred in Italy. You think of Julius Caesar, of Augustus. But what if I told you that for a crucial period, the man who commanded it all, the absolute master of the known world, was an African? This is the story they don't teach you in school. How a man from modern-day Libya, a descendant of Rome's ancient enemies, seized the throne, flipped the power dynamic, and turned his homeland into the true center of the Roman world. As a young man from Leptis Magna, Septimius Severus walked into Rome's marble halls for the first time. The son of Punic merchants, speaking Latin with a thick accent, he looked up at senators who saw him as nothing more than a provincial outsider. But Severus had come to stay, and he would remake Rome itself. To understand how an outsider could take the ultimate prize, you have to understand the chaos he emerged from. The late 2nd century AD was an empire cracking under its own weight. Emperor Commodus, son of the great Marcus Aurelius, had turned it into a dumpster fire of paranoia and a bizarre obsession with playing gladiator, a spectacle that horrified the Roman elite. His assassination on New Year's Eve, 192 AD, triggered what historians call the Year of the Five Emperors. The emperor's own bodyguards murdered his successor and then did the unthinkable. They auctioned off the Roman Empire to the highest bidder. The empire was enraged. This wasn't a Rome they would die for. Across the provinces, powerful generals saw their chance, and on the Danube frontier, the commander of a battle-hardened army was proclaimed emperor by his troops. He was an outsider from a province that was the economic engine of the empire. His name was Lucius Septimius Severus. And he was an African. While others postured, he acted. Declaring himself the avenger of the murdered emperor, he gathered his legions and began the long march on Rome. So, who was this man who dared to challenge the Roman establishment? Septimius Severus was born in 145 AD in the magnificent city of Leptis Magna in modern Libya. But he wasn't just a provincial, his identity was a direct challenge to the old Roman order. His family was Punic, descendants of the Phoenicians who founded Carthage, Rome's greatest and most hated enemy. He grew up speaking Punic, and the historian Cassius Dio noted he spoke Latin with a thick provincial accent his entire life. This African identity was not about skin color as we see it today. It was a deep-seated cultural reality. The Roman province of Africa wasn't just wealthy, it fed Rome itself, supplying 40% of the empire's grain and olive oil. Before Severus made it politically dominant, it was already economically essential. But Severus's Punic roots meant he was always an outsider to the old Italian aristocracy. Fluent in Punic, Latin, and Greek, Severus was a product of a multicultural world, not a single city. This global perspective would prove crucial when Rome itself needed new leadership. He was intelligent, ruthless, and patient, and when the empire descended into chaos, his moment arrived. While his rivals made promises, Severus understood a critical truth: he who holds Rome holds the empire. He marched his legions straight for Italy with lightning speed. The sitting emperor, the man who bought the throne, was pathetic and powerless. His support evaporated. The Senate declared him a public enemy and had him killed. Severus entered Rome without a fight. His first act as emperor was a masterstroke of political theater and brutal force. He summoned the entire Praetorian Guard, the Italian elite who had auctioned the throne, ordering them to appear unarmed. As they stood helpless, his own loyal soldiers surrounded them. He tore into them for their dishonor, dismissed every last one, and created a new guard twice as large, filled with men from his own provincial legions. The message was unmistakable: the old Italian-centric order was dead. Power no longer came from the Senate, it came from the legions, and the legions belonged to the man from Africa. But he still had two rivals. He played a brilliant political game, offering one, Clodius Albinus, the title of junior emperor, a strategic lie to buy time. With his western flank secure, Severus marched east to crush Pescennius Niger. The civil war was brutal. At the Battle of Issus in 194 AD, Severus's legions crushed Niger's army. Niger was executed. With the east subdued, Severus turned on his so-called partner. The truce was over. Near Lugdunum, in modern France, the two massive Roman armies met in one of the largest and bloodiest battles ever fought between Romans. The battle hung in the balance for 2 days. At one point, Severus was knocked from his horse and nearly defeated, but he rallied his men and personally led the charge that won the day. Albinus took his own life. Severus was now the undisputed master of the Roman Empire. Returning to Rome, he unleashed a ruthless purge, executing dozens of senators who had backed his rival. He wasn't just settling a score, he was cleaning house, removing the old guard who saw him as a provincial usurper. He had waded through blood to get the throne, and now he would remake the empire in his own image, an image forged not in Italy, but in Africa. Having seized power by force, Severus ruled like a monarch whose power base was the army. His deathbed advice to his sons says it all. Be of one mind, enrich the soldiers, and despise the rest. He lived by that creed, raising army pay, allowing soldiers to legally marry, and guaranteeing their absolute loyalty. But the most visible sign of this new African-centric Rome was what he did for his hometown. He poured unimaginable wealth into Leptis Magna, launching a massive building program that transformed it into a monumental Rome in Africa. When Severus saw his hometown's new triumphal arch rising from the desert sand, he wasn't just an emperor returning home. He was proving that provincial blood could wear the laurel crown, that Carthage's descendants could rule Rome itself. This wasn't vanity, it was a declaration that the heart of the empire could beat anywhere. While other emperors built up Rome, Severus was elevating his Punic birthplace to rival any city in the empire, proving that the provinces weren't just serving Rome, they were Rome. The final chapter of Severus's life was spent not in the warm sun of Africa or the palaces of Rome, but on the cold, damp fringes of the empire, Britain. In 208 AD, the aging emperor led a massive army to what is now Scotland. It was a brutal, difficult war. The campaign took its toll, and in 211 AD, Septimius Severus died in the city of Eboracum, modern-day York. He left the empire to his two sons, Caracalla and Geta, whose toxic relationship quickly imploded. Before the year was out, Caracalla had his brother murdered to seize sole power. But it was Caracalla who, in 212 AD, enacted his father's vision. He issued the Edict of Caracalla, declaring that all freeborn men within the Roman Empire were now full Roman citizens. Cynics claim it was just a way to expand the tax base, but its effect was far greater. It was the inevitable conclusion of the journey Septimius Severus had started, erasing the line between the Italian center and the provincial periphery, making the entire empire Roman. Just as today's global leaders from emerging economies rise to dominate international institutions, Severus proved that power could shift from traditional centers to unexpected places. The son of Punic merchants became master of the known world. The story of Septimius Severus isn't a footnote, it is a fundamental challenge to the Eurocentric image of Rome. For a critical period, the empire was commanded by a man from Libya, and the center of power, wealth, and influence shifted south to Africa. Severus found an empire in chaos and gave it order, but at the cost of turning it into a military monarchy. His reign proves that Rome was never just one thing. It was a dynamic, multicultural world where an outsider could rise up, seize the throne, and forever change what it meant to be Roman. The evidence is undeniable, carved into the ruins of Leptis Magna and written into the very laws of the empire.